Morning, everyone. Welcome to our January 24th MLPS board meeting. We'll call, I believe we have everyone here that's needed to be here. Provision of disclosure of pecuniary interest. If you have any, please forward to the the minutes of the December 3rd meeting of the MLPS Authority Board or the closed minutes. Is there any questions for this arising up? Seeing none, we need a motion to approve those minutes. Councilor Brennan, Councilor Burkhart Jessup, all in favor? Next, we're moving to action items. The award of request for proposal for MLPS 2024-01. Who's doing that? Adam, is that yours?
Did you want to start or do you want?
Yeah, sure, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So with MLPS's electronic patient care record software contract coming up at the end of June, coupled with the fact that the solution that they're currently using is going to be retired at the end of the year, a group consisting of the MLPS leadership team and county staff developed a request for proposal last fall, which ultimately closed on November 5th. 3 submissions were received. The evaluation process consisted of 3 stages. First, a review of the written proposals against criteria which you'll see in the report. Only those who scored 70% at this stage were to move on. The reason why we do that is just to make sure that all the respondents who are capable of the MLPS's requirements and needs move forward in the process. The second part of the evaluation was the evaluation of the pricing against each respondent. And then finally, a live demonstration we held just prior to Christmas, where the evaluation team were able to see how the system functions, both from their perspective, but as well as from medics on the road. So following the evaluation process, the proposal from Industry Limited received unanimous first place votes from all 6 evaluators for a variety of reasons, including that the solution would improve efficiency, most importantly from the perspective of getting medics back on the road sooner. The continuum add-on that the team is recommending and proceed with promises to increase department bandwidth for real-time live data. Speaking of reporting, the simple yet it's simple and entirely customizable, and Trim is committed to work with the Director of Paramedic Services and his team to develop those reports prior to the system launching. There is vast customer service and IT support, and redundancies are in place to limit downtime, which hopefully will reduce the burden on services once the system's up and running. And then finally, Image Trend clearly demonstrated the ability to work with large and complex organizations such as MLPS. They're currently the largest player in the US, operating in 7 of the 8 biggest cities and starting to expand their footprint into Canada. From a contract perspective, the initial term will be for 3 years with 4 additional 1-year options at MLPS's sole discretion. From a cost perspective, you'll see that including implementation, the first year will cost MLPS just over $393,000, with subsequent years being about $370,000 plus. Initially, the cost of the proposal as described was higher, but through negotiations coupled with Image Trend's desire to work with MLPS and further expand their footprint into Canada, they have reduced their cost by 25% for implementation and 20% for the recurring solution fees, saving MLPS $257,000 for the initial 3-year term, or if all option years are invoked, $574,000 compared to the original proposed rates. So before I open it up to questions, we'll see it.
Just to emphasize what Josh is saying, this is an extremely critical piece of software. So the process that Josh just described was quite thorough to reflect the importance of the particular software and its purpose within the service.
Questions? Questions? Councilor.
Thanks, and through the chair, that's a lot of money. How does it compare to what we've been paying in the past? And then given the fact that our previous supplier, excuse me, is retiring, 3-4 year contract, how does that mesh if you change it to something else, or if they decide they're better than they?
Do you want me to start?
I can start with it. First, just to clarify, the solution that they're currently using is retiring. The organization still exists, but they're forcing them onto a new software solution. So they'd be starting at square one regardless if they stay with the same vendor or whatnot. In terms of a price perspective, the existing supplier came at about percent lower than what we're proposing to do. So there is somewhat of an increase in cost. I know that there has been some challenges with the pre-existing software moving forward, and we think the value is there by making a step on the Strim product. As I mentioned, Strim is the largest organization in this field and has a huge footprint in the US and has a lot of influence. I'm sure we want to see them going. So they're very much in a growth mode.
Additionally, some of the items that were within the new supplier, so the current EPCR solution that we use, the company that has absorbed that solution is retiring, and we would be forced to move over to their new product. Their new product is not completely developed yet. There were a lot of pieces that were yet to be developed, yet to be implemented. So we would also be then functioning that with less ability until those actually came online. So we wouldn't actually be able to deploy a lot of the resources that we would need on a regular basis.
Any other questions, Susan?
I see the upside to having it be the first in Canada with a discount, but what would the risk be to be that?
So that's a great question. There's currently, we would be the second in Canada. Cochrane District has already implemented the software with great success. What they're finding is the customization and the ability to control what is happening within the EPCR is different than any of the other pieces that have ever been available before, which increases the flexibility that the paramedic service has, the simplicity of the form, while the outside simplicity of the form, it allows the form to be completed relatively quickly. So the risk side of that is actually lowered for us because there's less chance for error from that side of it. But then there's a lot of analytics that are available in the background, but also the customization pieces where we can help ensure that the paramedics. So from the risk pieces of the individual parts that go on with the EPCR, they're reduced compared to what we would have previously had, where we don't have control over necessarily what the EPCR looks like. So if something breaks or something changes, we have no recourse to fix or modify, and we have to go based on their time scale, as opposed to that of the ministry when we're implementing or issuing a new policy or a new standard. We need to be able to react and move with that as well.
Any other questions? Bill?
Just not, I just want to talk about the process, the procurement process. I think this is, I've said this to Josh privately, I just want to say it publicly, that it should be a case study for how to do procurement. This particular should be a procurement case study for how to do it properly and the benefits of it, both negotiation, procurement, how the team evaluated. When I reviewed every aspect of, when I reviewed this, I was very impressed with not only Josh's work, but of the team, but in particular, just how the procurement process not only saved money, got us the best product, and then limited our risk. We're talking about huge public sector dollars here, and we're going to continue to advance our procurement processes to limit risk and to make sure that we're getting great. And this is just a great value for money story, I think, in my view. So I just want to say that to you, Josh. Again, thank you for your great work on this. I know the team all believes that as well.
Any other questions? No other questions? So we have a recommendation in front of us to receive for information and to authorize the Director of Paramedic Services to award a request for bids. Moved by Mike, seconded by John. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Our next one is mobile logistics report. Ellington or Addington?
No, we can start with those. We can
I assume it's a team.
It is this.
Oh, we all
this is a
talk
team
about
effort. So why don't I start, and then Kelly can answer some of the technical sides of that. At MLPS, we're constantly looking for innovative ways to do what it is that we do, rather than relying on the way things were done in the past. When opportunity comes to innovate and do things more efficiently, that would allow us to enhance service to the community, but also within the paramedics and our logistics staff. Our goal is to look into those and try to find a new way to deliver better service. Mobile logistics is one of those items as well. When we look at the support system that logistics provides to paramedics, They have a very complex job. It's more than just delivering patient care. There's the pieces that come along with that, the restocking of the ambulances, the cleaning of their equipment, the ability to move from one place to another. In order to do that, there's requirements that are handed down to the paramedic services and the paramedics on what they need to do pre and post calls. So that takes a lot of time out of their normal system. So being able to provide more time for the paramedics to be back into the 911 system is important. Also giving the support and creating a standard, so a base standard on how equipment is cleaned, maintained, restocked. Looking at what we could possibly do. Right now, the current system that we would have paramedics be removed from the 911 system and potentially move to one or two potential or stock repositories that we would have within the city. A large one, if there's a big issue, they would need to come all the way down to our headquarters on Adelaide Street. The mobile logistics provides mobile support for the paramedics that are out in the system and gives us the ability then to bring that support to them rather than them having to come to us to get the support. So we're flipping the script on that, and we're taking the support on the road to them. So just want to walk everybody through how that would look.
So what we want to do is do a trial in Strathroy, which will take care of the county first as our trial. So we'll have prepackaged kits and bags that our logistics techs will take around to the stations in the county. So that will allow to keep that coverage in the county. Right now, for example, if the Lucan truck, for example, needed to come to HQ headquarters for a deep clean, we would then have to shift our kill over to LC Craig to cover that area. So we want to be able to have logistics bring those vehicles out, exchange them deep clean and bring them back. As well, they'll be replacing their stock at the same time. So there's some benefits there.
Of important note with that as well, when Kelly's describing by bringing those kits. So within the ambulances and within the bags, so if you were to see in the back of the ambulance, the bins and the stock kits that are there, they need to be replaced to certain levels. There's the standard that has to be had. So by having the logistics technicians who that's their primary focus, we're reducing the risk of potentially having missing or expired equipment put back into circulation. And we're also reducing overall costs by being able to cycle out medications and supplies that would be coming close to their end date. So for example, if there was a medication that was in a station that wasn't necessarily a high utilization of that particular type of medication, it can be cycled into another station where it is a high utilization for that, so that we can make sure that we can reduce our chances of wastage. Then we also don't need to carry as much supply in those other repository areas, so we don't have to carry as much supply on hand, which also reduces the total risk that we have, as well as the wastage that goes with that. Having an expired medication in an ambulance is a great risk. Not having the medication is also a great risk. So this helps mitigate some of those as well. And it puts it back into a standard control.
And less potential for a code 9.
That's correct. Less potential.
I learned lingo, I was just showing off that I knew what that is.
So what is that?
Code 9 is whenever they have to get rid of a medicine because it got too cold, so they have to clean out that medicine. So there's expiries you have to worry about, but also if it gets too cold or the temperature difference.
Nearly every medication has an expiry date, but nearly every piece of or every supply that is carried by paramedics has an expiry date on it. So whether they're bandages all the way up to life-saving medications, everything has an expiry date. So we have to be very conscientious of where we are with those expiry dates and making sure that we're cycling through. So if we're leaving them in an ambulance that is in an area where they're not utilizing those, we still have to carry them on hand as part of a ministry requirement. But it would make more sense for us then to move them into an ambulance where that ambulance tends to use a lot of them. And we see different equipment and different medications being used in different areas within our community. So the county uses perhaps more trauma supplies, whereas somebody that's closer to long-term care settings uses more nitroglycerin, for as an example. So we want to cycle those through.
So a couple things, you probably have guessed already that we're trying to win in every single area, and logistics is an area that we think we can win. And be industry leader in. And why do we care? Because it's a major cost center, as Adam has pointed out, and Kelly's pointed out, like it's our most expensive thing is vehicles, and if we can get less kilometers, it's going to be a huge savings. But this is not only, I think we're not only going to create an industry leading practice for how we do it, it's an industry first. I just still can't find evidence of anybody that really does it this way. And because of that, the next question is, You know, how are you gonna make sure it's performing well? Well, we have a series of KPIs that we're gonna try to measure. And, you know, a whole pile of them, and some we haven't even talked about, some that are hard to measure, like. The frustration level of paramedics that have to go get caught in traffic to come all the way back. So it's not just lost hours, it's also satisfaction levels of employees. We're gonna do those surveys, we're gonna try to come back to you. With real KPIs about why this program adds value and, you know, just. The other options we have are increasing our facility footprint much larger, like creating a whole new station in the north end with a whole new other logistics department. And this is, it's way better than the solution I thought of, which was that, which was, you know, together we came up with this, it's a much better solution. And, we really wanna do a great job with this and prove that this is the way that everybody should be doing it going forward, so that's why we're kind of excited about it. And we also wanna get the board into the logistics center that we have now and show you in a tour what it is we do and how we do it, like. I think the three of us talk about logistics all day long because we're pretty excited about just the value that's being added now to the ambulance day. And, it's an area of business operations that I'm responsible for with Kelly. And we really want to show you how that adds value to the thing you don't hear, the thing you hear about all the time is about. A service at the end, but this beginning piece is where there's real value and savings that can be achieved and provide a better service. So we're excited to get you a session where we can show you that.
Questions?
Fine. I was gonna ask about the KPIs and how this is gonna look to us. So I'm assuming, you've already done it, but so right now, we know where we sit, like you have metrics as to
Yes.
throwing up medication.
Yeah.
I guess you're calling it code nine. Right, so, and then we will be able to see how this moves along.
Yes.
I assume that's,
That's exactly it. So we can,
Yeah.
we can see the medications that we bring in. So we can see what we normally bring in on a monthly basis. We can see what we have on hand.
right,
We can also see what we have through wastage. And then we can see once we are rolling this out. Any reductions or changes within it. So whether do you have to bring in more parts of this, do we bring in less because we already have them on hand? Yeah, we should see wastage going down. Kilometers and mileage on the ambulances should go down as well. So pardon me, the satisfaction to the employees as well is a huge one. That's a difficult one to get a firm.
We'll do a survey, we're gonna do a survey. Essentially, when we're doing another thing here with this report and some of our reports this week, we're trying different reporting formats, so we're gonna ask you for feedback on that. But this executive summary at the beginning. We're not really writing reports just for you guys anymore, we're writing them for all of our employees, we're writing them for the public because, you know, I think there's a large volume of our team that watch these meetings and focus in on the reports. So this executive summary is a good way to get to the parts that they're the most interested in, but if you look at this executive summary, Mike.
Yep.
Every single one of those areas, we're going to give you KPIs on, and we can compare them to it. We're gonna do a baseline now for these things, we have a baseline now, or we will establish a baseline and then show you in 6 months in a year what that looks like.
I figured that's what this team would be doing. Just seeing how you operate over the last 2 years. That's my questions.
Other questions, that's just, this should really help in, as you say, into circulating drugs, supplies, all of those things. Do we have to add, I can't remember from the budget side, do we have to add more people to logistics? We already have some people that are here at the main, like the main station or the headquarters. Will those people be going out, or those people will stay at headquarters and it'll be, or cycling, however they do?
Kelly's got that one.
Yeah, so we already have a full-time body in Strathroy, LT.
Okay,
So we're gonna be working with.
A logistics technician.
We're already working within our current hours, so we're not adding anything more during this trial period.
at least right now, it might be in the future,
The
but
things we would need to look at that would be if we expand into the city to the north end. We want to be able to provide 24-hour coverage, not just 12 hours a day. We would need days and nights.
okay,
So we'd have to look at because well, Kelly and I have talked about this, we don't know the answer to what that future need is going to be if we expand it to the north end as well. It's possible we'll be able to have reduced time with the logistics technicians we have now that can be redeployed, but there might. We don't know, like, we're gonna have, that's part of doing the Strathroy, we already have one person to experiment. And redeploy a little bit, and move some people around. The other thing that's gonna be really interesting, and Mike, you ask about electric vehicles all the time. And we really wanna use this as an opportunity to see whether or not that's a way to reduce our costs as well. With by expanding, we have one electric vehicle now, and if we went to another one and used it. Primarily just for this, what would the benefits be in terms of cost savings? And I can tell you, Kelly and I are watching very carefully this question. Because the most expensive thing we have, the most expensive thing we own is ambulances. And, you know, for those of you at home that don't know, a fully equipped ambulance is like well over $300,000. And so, putting that on the road versus, a cheaper electric vehicle that is lower cost to run is gonna be just incredible KPIs. So we're hopeful, we're gonna blow the doors off this, like, we're pretty excited about it, because I think we're gonna be able to blow the doors off it with our numbers.
I think what I like is we're not adding a lot of resources to start, like to see how it works. I think that's important. And then we can adjust as you go.
And we're doing it in a good spot, a good test out in Strathroy, long distances.
Yeah.
I think it's great too, that taxpayers understand this, and I think it's appealing, right, that they're looking at exploring it and. Makes sense.
Yeah, and if it turns out it doesn't make sense or we're wrong, well, then we'll be the first to admit it and go, okay, let's go back to the way we're doing it before, or think of something else, but.
Still get kudos for trying.
We're gonna try, yeah, and we're gonna try to keep innovating.
But I think you have talked about it long enough. Now that you've got a pretty good idea how you want to start, then tweak it as you go.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, I look forward to seeing it actually. Yeah. It'll keep our ambulances ready quicker, so I like it. All right, any other questions? Seeing none, we have a recommendation to accept this for information. Moved by Susan, seconded by Kathy, all in favor, carries. Next one, resiliency training. Adam, I have you down for that.
Okay. So what we're looking for in terms of providing support for our front or for all employees, primarily when we're looking with the front line, we have a lot of support in place post incident. We have a very strong peer support team that's been in place for quite some time. Our peer support team, quite often the paramedic services come and they're more than glad they go out and help mold and model other peer support teams. We have clinical intervention. We have a clinical psychologist that can intervene earlier on in the process when we've identified that somebody's been on a very critical call. The next thing that we're looking at, we have with presumptive legislation that's within the emergency services. That's a tremendous pressure for paramedic services. We also have employees that are entering the workplace from a younger perspective without necessarily as much life experience. They're coming into a profession where there is going to be tremendous strain on mental health. We have a lot of value that we can provide to the employees at the back end of it. The piece that we want to be able to provide, the support we want to give them, is further upstream. We want to be able to start providing people resilience so that we can help people navigate through their career and not end up having to engage within those significant calls, or when they have a significant call. We've helped build some of the resilience, we've built some of the coping mechanisms, and we made them stronger in order to get them there. So we're able to provide a paramedic the support they need to be able to stay in the profession, be able to heal from any of the calls that they potentially have. The other benefit, we end up with happier, stronger, healthier employees. We can also work to move people out of WSIB, away from the presumptive legislation side. From a service perspective, it's important for us to help keep people in the workplace. When we end up with somebody that does suffer a critical stress injury, the resilience training would also help mitigate some of the symptoms that they may see, or help expedite that person back into the workplace. Typically, a mental health injury or a critical stress injury is going to have that employee out of the workplace for a significant period of time, anywhere between 6 months to 12 months. So this is just another layer of what we're trying to do to provide support to the frontline staff.
So whenever we talk, sorry, Brian, but when we talk about the budget, we talked about employees. Improving and enhancing services and facilities, right? But employees are always first. It's something that Mike and I and all of you have talked about a lot. Whenever our team looked at the universe of resiliency training, we determined that we were doing an excellent job of post-event support. Excellent. I don't know if you mentioned the peer programs and all that stuff, you mentioned that, but it's that front end piece where we felt we could do more. And so, you know, collectively, this is a great program, I think that's gonna help so much with that, and Adam's exactly right, our demographics is changing so much. In terms of the types of supports that are needed, this is a reaction to that to make sure, and again, we're going to. Do the KPIs on, is this working? Are we, you know, like, let's talk to our employees and make sure this is what they need or what else do they need? But this is us really trying to over index on providing employee supports around this very, very critical issue.
But to your point, this was one of the key focuses with the budget. This goes right into one of those key focuses. Kathy,
Just really just congratulations on doing this. I think I've been always quite vocal about making sure that our employees, both frontline and back of the line and in-house, get the sort of mental health supports that they need. And of course, that was highlighted obviously during the pandemic. But I'm really proud of the proactiveness of this. Because I do think it does create a more well-rounded health environment. And in the event that there is some sort of trauma that they have to deal with, you've already kind of laid the framework of the tools that are there and the support and the environment that they can, you know, get that. So I think I'm really excited about getting updates on how this is being utilized and the feedback from everyone. I think conversations have certainly changed about mental health over the last number of years. And again, getting out in front of it is even a bigger step than just saying, you know, it's okay not to be okay, it's, you know, have the conversation. A lot of that is after. But the more we can look after the whole, the better. So thank you and congratulations.
comments, but Susan,
Yeah, I'll just say thanks too. I think it's really important, this kind of work, to do that front end. And the ripple effect is beyond even that person, right? The impact on their family, if they're better prepared to cope, on society itself. I imagine it's really tough when a team as a member step out for whatever reason. And then there's the old adage of ounce of prevention's worth the pound of cure. So just even from a financial investment, it should have a huge pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of us don't know what they see out there, and I'm quite sure we'd be shocked what some of those calls involve. So I think for this to be in place to help them deal with those things, because I can only imagine what they see on a day-to-day basis sometimes. So I think it's very important that this goes on. I know a young fellow that was a paramedic that went, and then he suffered from PTSD, and he was a good friend of my son's. I knew the kid growing up, and he was eventually with suicide through drugs, but he suffered a lot from stuff he'd seen, so it's very important.
I think it's important, Brian, too, that we say that on behalf of the team, that we don't think this is the end of the solutions. This is just one of the tools, a step. There's more that we're thinking about and doing, but we're gonna put this out there, reevaluate, see how well it does. Because like even, I think Kathy or Susan mentioned the families. And, you know, they're impacted as well in how all this rolls out. So we're gonna constantly monitor how this does, but I don't think anybody should think this is the last step. This is sort of a piece of the puzzle where we recognize the gap and wanted to address it quickly.
any other questions, comments? No, okay, we have another recommendation to accept this for information. Moved by John, seconded by Mike, all in favor? Carried. Oh, the heart, report on heart, hazardous area response team.
Okay. So we can give you, we've talked to the board about the hazardous area response team in the past. The purpose of the team is to be able to provide the training that paramedics need in order to do their job. So under specific circumstances. So those hazardous areas, we have groups of paramedics that feel apprehension in going into those environments. They're not necessarily trained. We have paramedics that enjoy that. But again, without the training and the equipment that they need to go in there, we also worry then or run the risk of them potentially extending themselves further than they potentially should out of totally altruistic reasons for wanting to be in there to help. This particular team is designed to help do that. So through some of the planning processes that we have, we've been engaging with some of our partner services that have already implemented similar type teams. We have worked through the onboarding pieces to how we're going to look or actually do the evaluation processes and taking the best practices from what they've done and experienced so that we're not inventing this entirely on our own. We're also working within some of the other paramedic services that have implemented those. We're at a point now where we're getting close to being able to release the recruiting aspect of that. And it's moving forward on a quite positive manner.
Yes.
Just curious, how you know where there's a hazardous area, so are you working, like obviously with the city of London or with, the local municipalities within the county, because they will all have in their, emergency plans, list of areas, so how are you determining that?
No, that's an amazing question. Thank you. So we have over the past years, we have built a repository of those exact areas that you're speaking of, like through the HIRA that the municipalities have. We have that where we have what would be deemed as potentially high risk, and we have standing plans on how to respond to those high risks. Whether that be a factory that is going to run a magnesium fire, if there's an area that has wide open spaces where you could end up with a brush fire or barn collapse, or radio towers when they go down. It could even be, or not, it couldn't be. We also have lists of schools and where the evacuation points would be for those. So we have those lists and plans in place. This is the next step that comes in along with that. And that's how we also know where the calls are going on. There's partnership and cooperation between our other first responding agencies. So for example, if the fire department were responding to a high rise, we would already coordinate with them the manner in which the paramedic now under these teams would operate would put them in a slightly different location physically on the scene, and it would provide them, or they would start working towards, say, fire rehabilitation as the firefighters are coming out. So with a large apartment fire, spending a small period of time, if the paramedics are now providing fire rehabilitation for the firefighters, they're being able to be recycled or recirculated back into the actual scene and fight the fire. But then that also will alert them to when they're not safe to go in. So we're helping protect those other individuals, but then they're in a spot where when people are being brought out, they're also able to help coordinate and act as that collection point for any people that are being brought out of the building that might need potential help. So they're in a more active space than where the paramedics would normally be kept at the end of the road on a standby, for example. We have now paramedics that are closer up to the scene where they're seeing patients coming out, and they're able to treat and then move them back into a more safe environment for the other ambulances to do. So, but yeah. Does that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mike?
Yeah. So, are we working closely with the fire departments and police departments? Stratford, Carroll, and then whole list of fire departments, of course, out of the county. So are we working closely with them to either cross train, get their information? I know I'm sure they all have where their hazardous spaces are and how they're attacking.
Yes.
Incidences there. And
yes, absolutely. So what you're hitting, that key piece there is also the training piece of that. So each of those different agencies have different training requirements or different, operational requirements when they go in. So it's really important that the paramedics, they will respond different with London Police as opposed to Strathroy or the OPP. They all have different parameters. So some of our training officers are actually embedded with the OPP for some of those issues as well. And as we're starting to move those or that plan forward, that's when we're starting to connect with Strathroy Police to be able to say, here's your hazardous areas, here's the team, here's the training that they have. So we're at those stages where we're starting to build those plans. So as far as engaging with specifically Strathroy Police, that piece they haven't been brought onto that piece yet, because we still are putting that last piece of the training piece together.
Yeah.
So that we can get their input. Here's the training that they're having. What additional pieces would you need in order for us to support your officers as well?
Yeah, no, I think it's wonderful. I think it's nice to see the ambulance part of first responders jumping into that rapid response and the heart stuff. Policing and fire have been doing it for years. They recognize the need for it. Standing back and looking at it from way back or way up or however we're supposed to look at it. I see silos already being developed with police things and fire do fire things, but the reality is your heart team and an ERT team, which is what the police thing,
Yeah.
and fire. I don't even know what fire. I should know what Strathroy Fire, a couple others, but I don't. But right now, I see silos, and it would be really good to see those silos break down. It's your job and any other first responders. You have a specific job.
That's right.
But the training and the way this happens on scene is not silent. Right? And that's what you were saying, like you used to be staged way off.
That's exactly what
But that's completely inappropriate.
exactly. And that's the other piece. So you hit the nail right on the head with that when it comes to the training and that's involved with that. It's creating a new team that isn't necessarily there. So for example, if we use policing for the example, they would embed like the OPP, for example.
Yeah.
Would embed a tactical paramedic, and so they would refer that to as times tactical EMS, where they would have that one specific person and they're in there just doing policing. But that member also has to be able to work with fire. So there needs to be that baseline training that we need to have, and that's the piece that we're putting together. So we're working with our other paramedic services that are embedded with, say, they just have a tactical EMS. We're looking at doing more than just tactical EMS. We're looking at having an entire heart team. So we need to have those exactly what you said, so that we don't have that silo. We need all of that baseline training. So then the additional partners. So what is the unique piece for Strathroy? What's the unique piece for this particular fire department? What does this rural municipality for their fire is different than the City of London fire.
And even to break
local
down
police
those silos. And that's not the role of MLPS, but
It might be a catalyst as well.
Yeah, but like when you're looking at it above, it's like, is that an emergency management? Is that like, somebody will end up taking on the role where it's like, if I've got fire departments are the most, right? Because every community has its own fire department, and then of course City of London has an enormous one, but how do you get the fire departments to realize on this issue, the uniqueness needs to go away and you need to all work together, because the reality is world's going crazy, right? Trump bombs us, right? Or some crazy things happen. You could end up with Sarnia Fire, London Fire, everything in Middlesex County, all responding to an enormous scene all at the same time. And uniqueness doesn't work in those situations. It collapses the entire process. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. The more you talk about it, the more I
It
look
is,
back
it
and think, yeah, it's funky, because it's hard to work with people that are I was OPP and I worked with municipal, and I've done the opposite, and it's hard to break down the silos, and I don't know how that'll happen, but I'm sure it will happen probably sooner than later.
We're hopeful to see something like that, because that would be wonderful to have that as a side piece that comes with that, having one unique team. And I should, that's not necessarily the goal of MLPS to create those relationships, but if we can be a catalyst that helps with that, that would just be a wonderful side effect of that, being able to create more interoperability between those different municipalities and the different departments that respond in there, because they're seeing standardization within the way that one team responds across, because they're partnered with all of them, or they're responding and supporting
that opportunity, because of what MLTS is doing, we now have all three of the historic first responders looking at scenes the same way, right? We need an ERT or an ERT team or a true team, or many different names, right? And fire has underwater search and rescue, and they have You know, all these other, and then now MLPS is coming to the table and saying, we're not just an ambulance, we're a heart team, a rapid response team now. Right, we're gonna have specialty teams and they'll probably grow over time, so. Now that conversation is, well, now we have all three emergency services recognizing the need for special teams, and now you gotta look even bigger, right? How does everybody start working together? Air show would be the big one that would come to mind. There's a catastrophe waiting to happen. Right, and I love the air show. I'm not saying anything, but I mean, you got a lot of stuff going on up in the air all at the same time. And when one of those planes come down and into an audience or into a business, or like so many bad things could happen. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Good for you.
There's not many positive thoughts in that, you know.
Well, I've been at those scenes, you know.
Yeah, it is
So
emergency response.
I've told you before.
Other question, John.
Adam, we're moving the paramedics into the scenes closer now. Is that gonna require, like, if you get into some areas where they may need breathing apparatus? If they're in that close, that, you know. Do you have that for your paramedics now, or are you gonna get some and train some of this unit that they have breathing apparatus and they're gonna be moved in closer to the scene?
Maybe talk about the
Yeah.
support materials for all types of police and fire.
Yes, so when we're looking at that, the support pieces that you're talking about, a lot of those support pieces are through some of the partnerships that we have.
Yeah.
Specifically when we're talking about something like that's getting a little close into there. We're not looking to do the job of or to go in and do that, to be able to be closer to provide the support. Paramedics are already equipped with breathing apparatus for specific types of respiratory emergencies, which also provide that same. So they're already equipped and trained with pieces of equipment that would provide them the safety that they need when they're there. But as far as like a self-contained breathing apparatus in order to go into like a fire environment, that would come in the future, but those are come through the supports that would come along with our partnership for that. So if it was like a confined space where they had to remove a patient, they would already receive some of the training through fire. So it would be that the local fire department that would provide that equipment, and the training would be the same as them, so that they're at the same levels.
Your paramedics, are they averse to the new electric cars, like the hazards there when they're involved in accidents? Like, cause you just don't know, what you're gonna get into when there's I know our own station out of Arbor was involved with a Tesla car that had the front end wiped right off in an accident. And they have an app that they can go on and see where they can cut and what they can do to these cars. I'm not sure if you guys, sometimes you're the first ones on scene.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question too, because with more of the electric vehicles that are coming out, more of those accidents and with those particular environments, just even right now within the normal accidents that paramedics when they're coming up on scene for those electric vehicles, they have enough training and knowledge to stand back and allow the fire department to do those bits and pieces, but they're not actively in there doing any of the cuts. That would go within there. But when, exactly, yes, so they would have to then also follow some of the direction of the fire department in there. That's where some of the collaboration, I think, and also what Mike was talking about too, when we have those teams that are there. We also have to rely that the paramedics are there to provide the patient care aspect of that. So that's a great example where if they were to cut in the wrong space and create a larger fire, and if they were in the back trying to provide patient care at the same time as that, they would have to rely on the fire department that was there in response to say, we need to do this, we need to extricate you back to this safe spot before you can go back in. So that's where that collaboration and that interoperability that you're talking about has to come from because previous, like in the past, where you're talking about like the silos, they're thinking specifically, what do I need to do this? And then you have paramedics that are thinking, I just need to take care of patient care. Police are worried about their side of that, but opening everybody's eyes to being able to see, well, you've got three agencies all with singular purposes, but they all go together because it's about public safety. So whether that's the patient that's in the car or the public safety from an explosion, everybody has to work together for common goals. And at some point, somebody's going to be asked to be removed back and forth. So
yeah, that's good. Any questions? I do like, you and I talked about ambulances on the road at a fire.
Yes.
I brought that up to you. I said I'd like to see them off the road because to be honest, when there's a big fire, people are not watching where they're going. they're driving along and they got the cameras going, and the last thing they're looking at is a car parked on the side of or an ambulance. And so, yeah, that was just a side comments that we had. And this might help with some of those things too.
What Brian's referring to is if there's an event happening within a venue and an ambulance is parked on a highway or on a county highway.
Which is right, in that case, it was a county.
Yeah, in a county road.
So, at speed of traffic, they're not paying attention because they're watching a fire at the event. And they're probably taking pictures or videos as they're driving. So, yeah, it was one that I happened to see.
All at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, it was one that I happened to see. It was in the night, of course, if somebody got out of the ambulance, but yeah, so that's just a side effect to what we're talking about here. But we've talked about this for quite a while. And I agree, I think it will just start at a certain point and grow to whatever the comfort level goes to. Right?
Exactly, it's not, the purpose of the program isn't to give everybody all the training immediately, it's to build out the core training that they need to be able to work. So the big piece is that interoperability and how to be able to work and liaise different than a paramedic normally would. So when they're going closer into the environment, they have to work with fire a certain way, police a certain way. Might have to work with OBP versus Strathroy versus London, slightly different. Same thing with the different municipal fire departments, they all operate slightly different, they need to be able to know that part. And then the different skill sets get layered on as they start to move. So we're not necessarily throwing everything into them immediately, it's to learn one piece for the safety and then the next side.
Don't you believe this is one we're really been working with the team to see how far they want the training to go
Yes.
as well? I mean, where that comfort level is. I think this is one that very much is gonna have a lot of input on the team themselves.
100%.
The real purpose of this report is, or the verbal update, is to make sure we don't get out in front of the board, because we're going for it. This is one that we're going for, and it's going to be implemented in a way to the races, and we just don't want to get too far in front of you and in front of the public either. This is an important program, and we wanted to make sure that you knew we're past the maybe we're going to do it stage. This is, we're doing it, we're going forward with implementation, and
So
Because we're always supplying the care, but without some of the training that should go with it.
Yes.
And we're gonna be more public about it in terms of the program and the benefits, and you're gonna start hearing those CTV news stories and et cetera, so it's all coming out there, right?
Yes.
So if there's no other questions, we need a motion to receive for information. Mike, Susan, all in favor, carried. Next is rapid response.
Excellent. So we had spoken with council about the rapid response. Or within this update, we wanted to be able to provide a little bit more detail on, or some more statistics and what it is that you're actually seeing within the rapid response units. So when we're with the specific rapid response unit itself, the number of cardiac arrests that it's going on, the number of interventions that the paramedics are actually able to perform are far exceeding what we had actually anticipated. So they're being able to go in and start more IVs. So there's adrosia. So those are specific IVs that go into a bone, for example. Needle decompression for patients. The total number of ACP medications that are being delivered to the patients exceeds what it is that they or what we would normally have seen within the normal ACP skill set. The large piece that we're seeing, or one of the largest impacts that we're seeing, is we're having, if we took a look at the system the way that it was before, where advanced care paramedics were partnered up with a primary care paramedic in a transporting ambulance. When a 911 call would be received, the closest ambulance would go to that particular call, and it could potentially be primary care, or it could be an advanced care that's in. If it was a significant call, there'd be a time delay while they looked to find another advanced care paramedic to potentially go. That advanced care paramedic would come from a longer distance to the scene, and then potentially there would be a pull now, because we have two transporting ambulances engaged on that one particular call. There will be a pull, and that pull generally will impact the outer line areas being from the county. So we would end up seeing Kamoka, Lucan, Dorchester would get pulled into the city, to the peripheries, in order to backfill some of what's going on because of that. The patients getting their care less, the advanced care paramedic, when they're arriving, may or may not be available in the first place because they'd be engaged on a lower priority call. So the number of times that they're getting onto the calls was decreased. Now with the rapid response unit, the paramedic that's in the rapid response unit functioning under the OIT initiative that we were able to secure through AMO was allowing the paramedics to be dispatched to 7 particular high acuity calls, which then puts us in a position where they have the ability to listen and see and hear some of the other significant calls that are going on. Some of the ones that are not necessarily classified under as an OIT. So those are the ones that they know they need their skill sets. They can hear it over the radio and they can see it in the surveillance software that they have. So those like a significant trauma, seizure, a stroke, chest pain that could potentially be a cardiac issue, such as a STEMI, that could be a pre-arrest, somebody that's hypovolemic. Pain management's another big one. We're just looking into some of the reports we even got from the team last night, where there were calls that they went to for, it was a lower acuity MVC, but the person had a significant fracture and needed pain management in order to get to the hospital. So these are the things that are making significant differences within the community itself. The reports that we're getting back from the advanced care paramedics are feeling a lot more fulfillment in order to do that, which is tremendous for us when we're looking at improving culture within MLPS, having highly trained paramedics that are in hallways or on lower acuity calls creates frustration for them. They didn't train for that. They want to go out there and actually apply their skill set, and we're giving them the tools and the support to be able to do that. We also have primary care paramedics that are out into the system now where they have additional support from their senior paramedics being able to come in and provide that additional support. So they're providing all of that feedback to them where they showed up to the call because it sounded like they were needed, but then even when they're not, they feel that support that's there. When they're going and dealing with a high acuity call and the rapid response unit paramedic has heard it, started to respond to it, and the patient is now in seizure and the primary care paramedic is seeing that they're in seizure, and all of a sudden they know that this is something that I can't manage. I have to manage some on a very basic level. And then there's an advanced care paramedic in the doorway. That's decreasing anxiety. That's increasing their feeling of support that's in there. And the patient is now getting the care that they need. When we look at the total number of times where advanced care skill sets have been applied to those patients in that those highest acuity settings, and we see a 42% increase in the number of times that advanced care paramedics are actually delivering those advanced skill set is an astronomically huge improvement from what we've had before. And because of the way that these rapid response units, paramedics are managing these calls, the passion that they've developed for this particular unit and the way that they're responding, their response times have increased the entire service's response time. So they're not just their response times are not 20% faster. The entire service of the MLPS's response times got moved because of their initiatives and their responses. So that's a small select, 2 on days and 2 on nights, that are managing to move the needle for the entire service as a whole with regards to the response times. So multiple facets. So additionally, not only are they doing that, but that's also indicating that those additional transporting units that were getting pulled in are also being left out into the periphery where they're belonging. Ambulances are remaining into the communities where they're belonging. And we should also note that these changes that we're seeing are also at a time where we've seen call volume go up, and we've also seen AOT increasing slightly because of pressures on the hospital as we're moving into respiratory season. So we're seeing increased call volume, increased offload delays, and our response times are going down. So it's providing a tremendous impact for them.
Yeah, so the executive summary is, this is one where all of our KPIs have been exceeded. And we think that whenever we get to that first quarter of analysis, we're going to be able to show you some really amazing data about that, other than anecdotal, right? I don't think that's what we're aiming for, certainly.
Yes.
And also the public is starting to know more about it. I'm just sending, you saw the CTV news story, I'm sure most of you. Public's learning more about it. And then the other piece of the puzzle is Brian and I and Adam met with the Ministry of Health this week. And we spent a lot of time thanking them for giving us the tool to help do this, which was allowing us to do rapid response. So I think we covered all our bases now on telling the public it's coming, getting permission to do it, telling the public it's coming, implementing a great program, measuring the results. Now it's just reporting those results back that aren't a month, just because they could be a blip. But also reporting out a quarterly number that we think we're going to be able to show the public and go, holy cow, this is amazing.
questions? Comments? No questions or comments? I would just to that rapid response. Report that you did to county council.
Yes.
I mentioned it to you and I haven't talked to Marcy yet about sending that out to all the lower tiers. As a correspondence to all the lower tiers, rather than just a verbal, just have that report go out. And would this, should it go out to the city and the correspondence as well? And
Use
that's
some
what
good
I,
news.
yeah, well, that's what I wanna make sure that we're getting that information out. But it was such a good report that went to county and that just makes these kind of things, Paul.
Brian, Adam and Bill are gonna present that at the County City Liaison Committee on February 13th, so it'd be logical for it to follow up after that. I'm not sure if we're gonna have updated statistics or whatnot, but if it'd be all right for it to go to that committee then the entirety of the city.
For sure. I mean, we can share some of the minor statistics now.
Like
if you
even,
wish, but
well, I do like that idea, just to give a sense, like even the 24, 26 people and how many
Yeah.
survive a day, you know,
Well-
that, like, it's a little anecdotal, cause I don't consider it. Statistically accurate until we get at least a quarter out.
Yeah.
But
within the first, yes, exactly. So within the first 30 days, for example, like one of the big numbers that we had that wasn't in that report that we're able to pull now was that out of all the CTAS-1 patients that we had, which is the highest level resuscitation, that small team responded to 35% of them, of all of them from the entire service, which is a huge number. The IDs that they started were 53 of them, like they're performing the skill sets that they're performing, the medications that they're delivering, they're able to provide sedation to seizure patients 10 times we're at an additional time like the pain management, 6 times in significant trauma injuries. So these are massive numbers that we wouldn't have seen otherwise.
the biggest problem is gonna be having the right size menu for Survivor Day this year, I think, because
I hope so.
this
That'd
is.
be a great problem.
That would be
great
a wonderful
That'd be
problem to
great.
have.
And I think, Adam, the only other thing I'd add is, didn't you pick, like, we were challenged, we were talking a lot about innovation with the Ministry of Health. And to his credit, the parliamentary assistant for Ministry of Health said, Bill, or he didn't say Bill, actually said, guys, what are the 2 biggest things that you think you could do in terms of innovation to help improve health services and to reduce costs and help hospitals and all the 5 things that I talk about all the time. And I pulled rank and I talked about another thing that'll be coming before the board. And Adam, you chose
The rapid response units.
more rapid response units. Just increase funding for the rapid response units.
So Kathy would be glad to know the other one was community preparedness.
Well, Susan
In a broad
will be
sense.
glad to know it was
Yes.
a specialized group in
Yes.
community care medicine
Absolutely,
that
yes.
I'm excited to talk about with you guys in the future.
And the only reason I say Kathy was just because of the conversation. But it was, yeah, very good delegations. Any other questions on this? If not, need a motion to
Just want to
accept.
say, Chair, if I can, like,
Yes,
this is we all sit on a lot of committees, right? But every time I come to this board representing MLHU, every single time it's a feel-good story. So, and it's not because you're saving lives, but it's because the innovation that is allowing more lives to be saved. That's what I see, and I guess I come from this world of a bit of background, so like it's an absolute honor to sit in the room with you guys. But the work that you're doing and the way you're thinking outside of silos and outside the box. I guess we're not supposed to use that term anymore. I read that on some news article. I don't understand. But like just well done. Like everybody that puts these thoughts forward and driving forward, and Bill, Adam, Ellie, Colin, was pretty
Even
good.
Paul.
Paul, yeah.
Even you, Mike, you're next on the agenda. This was your idea. By me was your idea.
it was, yeah, it was,
It's
I
amazing. Like it's we actually do stuff here, right? Like I had a meeting the other night. It's like we did nothing. We actually do stuff.
Yeah, no, this is an.
I'm sorry, but.
And kudos on the budget award too.
Well
well said.
done. That's
Well, if nothing else, we need a motion for the.
I
this
make it.
report. Mike, second by Susan, all in favor. Here. Next one is the Tuck Shop.
This is another great one, which came.
Sorry, I said it feels like summer case exciting.
Get Kathy a different jersey.
That's
can.
actually a good segue.
That's a
No.
perfect one.
Yeah.
So we did it, so this actually is an idea, like we had some discussion with the board. Where we do have, so we've implemented a tuck shop for MLPS to provide. Not necessarily crested items, but they're MLPS items very specifically. It's been launched where there's some t-shirts, sweatshirts, long sleeve shirts. There's a backpack that's there. Staff are extremely receptive and extremely excited. They started ordering almost straight away. We did ask to have a sample that was made up before, specifically for this, as they're starting to get stuff ready, so that we can give you, or to show a sample of what's the way that some of the product is going to look. So this is just an example of one of theirs, like one of the hoodies that they have is made by Under Armour. There's another one that's on there by Roots. And
Yeah, the Roots one's nice as a full zipper.
yeah, and then
Oh, that's quality, sure.
So we had, frankly, we had ideas. We sat in the room and had ideas about how we should roll out a branding program, and then when Mike mentioned the tuck shop and other services having a tuck shop, that became the idea that we went for, and it's just so easy and convenient. I did it twice this week where you go in and do it, and it's so easy for the employees to do. We can keep track of everything. It's very easy. So. And it's big bang for the buck too, because for the price point that we give the employees, they can get, they can get 4 items if they want. In the price point that we give the employees, depending on the quality that they choose, and so it's been a big hit. And again, there's no cresting on it. I think I told you the story about one of those sort of water cooler parking lot conversations I had with an employee who was saying, I don't want to feel like I'm working all the time wearing what Adam has on his shoulder. So this is more, hey, I'm proud of where I work, but I'm not work type of branding. And I'm kind of excited to see, what the next quarter brings in terms of how many people are wearing it and how many people are showing it off.
people are really excited, started to do that, and just as you say, they're looking for it, because what we encourage them as well is that more items will be coming as well.
Yeah.
So that we've already, can you put this in, can you introduce this? Can we have like water cups like that? Can we have like the Stanley type mugs? Can we have lunch bags? Was one yesterday.
Yeah.
Can we get new cooler lunch bags that we used to have? Somebody asked, could we have turtlenecks that go underneath our shirts for work? So it's nice to be able to create that culture where the staff are driving the requests for some of these items, because we can sit there and go through a list and pick out all the stuff we think they want, but it's really nice to be able to hear from them. This is what we would like.
I just like that it's MLPS. Like we went through the whole rebranding exercise a few years ago to go from EMS to MLPS.
Yeah.
And I always refer MLPS, and you still have everybody out there, formally still calling it EMS. I'm just like, no, MLPS.
Yeah, well, that branding's gonna work because we have a lot of employees that are gonna be wearing a lot of this on their off time. But these aren't work items. These aren't uniforms. These are sort of what they wear when they go to No Frills or grocery shopping or whatever they do. So, yeah.
It's great.
And we were able to do it, within existing budgets too. So we found a way to do that with some savings in some other areas and in different parts of our clothing program. So we were reinvesting that back into the employees, and my commitment was that we're doing it this year. We'll reevaluate how it goes, because we set a dollar amount. We're gonna see how it goes, and there'll be a report to the board of, here's how many people, we'll do those measurements. And do we have the right number? Is it too high? Is it too low? And then do we do it again? That'll be the question. So my intent is to just keep doing it.
Anything else? Need a motion for that. Kathy, John, all in favor? Carried. Make correspondence and information. We don't have any correspondence, but
Well, they're gonna work in, we'll see.
Michelle, is there anything, you or Adam want to add to the delegations? We've talked about them a little bit, I think, already.
The only thing that we were gonna show you was, why don't we do that now?
Sure.
If that's okay, Brian.
Yeah,
Just-
absolutely.
You want to do the past two?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So one of the things that we introduced earlier on were the ball caps. That was something that the staff had asked for quite some time. So all the staff have them. So the ball cap has so that they can wear it as a actual uniform
is-
piece on a day-to-day. On the back of it, it says paramedic for paramedics, logistics says logistics, and then there's also some that are not branded for the board. Who will be here
Yeah,
as
because
well.
we're trying to brand you guys too.
Yes,
So can family members get those presented with nothing on, like just the crest on it? You know, spouses or their kids or whatever.
Oh, you mean employees, spouses?
Employees.
These are more uniformy than that, but that's.
I just
that,
wondered.
that'd be a good item to add on there for the ball.
For the,
Say,
for the ball,
Yeah.
they would,
Okay.
anything without the crest is kind of, or we're trying to keep the crest for uniforms
get it.
and the MLPS.
Nice that. Nice that.
there's size for you. Yes.
I could,
That was,
We have
Nothing to do.
different sizes.
I could see that,
Yeah.
family members would
Yeah.
wear them too, that ball caps and stuff. Yeah, I can't believe that was such a big deal that it took, like,
It's
that,
easier.
sorry, but when you're asking for a ball cap, it's a ball cap, why can't, you know? So that was great to do that right away.
I mean, do you wanna talk just briefly about the uniform?
yes, so part of this as well, when we're talking about supporting the staff, it's also making them comfortable when they're doing their normal shifts. It's. You feel better, we all. Paramedics, they wanna look professional when they go out, they also, that way, you know, they put the right. You know, message across to the patients that they're professionals that are here to deal with them, but they also wanna be comfortable, so where do you balance that between that? And what we have found for the staff, so we introduced this not as a replacement, but as an additional piece of uniform that they can wear, so they can have the full button-up shirt similar to like what Kelly is wearing. Or they also have the option now, which we've introduced, this is for the polo shirts, where it's crested, it says paramedic on the front and back. And it's an entirely different weight,
And pass it around.
And take 2 minutes to change to that, wouldn't it?
Oh, that's
So-
so nice.
so we've introduced them in both short sleeve and long sleeve.
And for logistics too.
And for logistics
It's the
for,
same material, just says logistics on the back instead of paramedics.
so for all uniforms now have that as another option for them. So we've.
I can't wait to show that to police and fire, particularly police.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Your paramedic.
Absolutely, so it's lighter, it's a little more comfortable. If somebody feels like they need the button shirt, it's not as an option, but what we've seen is like phenomenal.
Yeah.
Uptake with those shirts, and paramedics have now started wearing them actually out, and they look incredible.
Yeah, they do look sharp.
It's very professional.
Well, they're professional, but not
Yeah.
Yes,
Not what, Kathy?
not as intimidating.
Intimidating.
And
I
that's-
think that's.
You know?
and that's important.
Oh, yeah, with all the crests on it, yeah.
But like to
Try
wear what
something.
Kelly wears. And to get out of the truck. And work at the side of the road for a half an hour in 40-degree heat. In the sun, we've all been there, and then get back into a cold ambulance with the air conditioning running with sweat dripping down your back. It's a long day,
It is.
so good, easy dry, put a t-shirt under it if you need
Yeah,
to.
no, it really looks good.
That like,
That's a great idea.
you
And
know,
the reflective.
such a simple thing,
That's
why do we have to wear?
Well, and the good news, what we decided to do on the team was give it as an option.
Yeah.
Because there are people that still, there's paramedics that like either option, or maybe it's just gonna take a little while to adjust, so. What do we care? Just let them transition if they want, or we'll always have these as option, what Kelly and Adam are wearing as an option as well.
Well done.
That's all we wanted to add on that, so.
No problem. All right, our next is to move into closed. For human resources matter, personal matter pertaining to an identifiable individual. Including municipal employees and advices subject to solicitor client privilege. Including communications necessary for that purpose pursuant to subsection 239 2B and F. Susan, second, John, all in